And they've been really, really useful to understand what those growth clients are thinking during this crisis. And then, and one other thing we've done is we've gone virtually London for business. So we've connected with all our stakeholders and partners and got a lot of virtual content, which companies can access remotely.
Thank you very much, Karen. So it's a very international and also virtual flavour. Amy, Level 39 is based at Canary Wharf. It's one of the, the great newer areas of London, which has emerged in the last 20 to 25 years. Some say that's a very focused thing, but of course, Level 39 has a London and a global reach. Tell us about your networks.
Absolutely. So Level 39, as you say, is based in Canary Wharf. So we're a wholly owned subsidiary of the Canary Wharf Group. We were set up 7 years ago to attract high growth tech businesses to Canary Wharf. We at the moment have around 200 businesses who are members of our community. Across that, 48 different nationalities are represented. So it's already a really international network. But the way that we support businesses, both already in the UK and those that are growing into London, is through our network of like-minded entrepreneurs. So being able to, going back to that element of knowledge sharing, collaboration, word of mouth, referrals, all of that happens really naturally in a community of like-minded businesses, especially given our focus on fintech and cybersecurity. But we also have our extended network to support all of those businesses. And that is our mentor network, our investor network, our partner network, all of whom kind of share their time, their experience and their expertise with our businesses to support them on their journey. We as Level 39 are neutral in that we don't invest in businesses ourselves. What we want to be is that support mechanism to connect our members with the right people so that they can build their customer base, grow their teams, and really scale both in the UK and internationally.
Great, thank you. And finally, Olivia, tell us about Fintech Alliance. You're an umbrella body. You tell us about your reach and your own networks.
Sure. So Fintech Alliance is a government-backed ecosystem that aims to bring together kind of every aspect of the fintech industry in the UK. So whether you're a large bank or a fintech unicorn, or you're just starting out, or a technology company wanting to get involved in that space, we're trying to create a blend of where all those can mix. We launched just in June 2019, so we're still quite new, but we're already 200 companies strong. And that's across the UK, but also some international companies who are looking to come into the UK as well. So we tried to help them mainly with the 3 key problems we identified, which was access to market, access to capital, and access to talent. And we're really kind of content-based, and we offer people an interactive platform to shout about what they're doing and get involved and contact each other. So luckily, with everything going on with COVID, we weren't a fully events-based organisation. We kind of already had that online element, which was good, but we've obviously done a lot more of that with webinars where we would have had in-person panels and stuff recently. So we can help organisations build connections with those who can offer help and advice, whether that's government, whether that's some of our partners like PwC and White & Case from a consultancy or legal perspective. We also help connect people with VCs. We've run a couple of online investment events, which are really helping people to understand what investors look for, how to pitch, and some practical advice like that. From my perspective as the editor, I guess the most important thing for me is that we create content to help you get to know what's going on in the market as fast as possible. So keeping you all up to date with all the news and every development that happens, hopefully in a way that's easy and digestible for people to understand. Because we know that people are obviously very busy and there's a lot going on, but also kind of hearing the perspectives of other fintechs. I think in fintech, we love to hear success as well as failure stories. So we talk about that a lot as well.
Sure, well, that's great. And Olivia and Karen, you touched on virtual, and we're obviously in COVID times. How on earth do people connect in the middle of a pandemic? How does it work if people can't get into a room? You've touched on some virtual stuff. This is obviously a virtual event. What are the mechanics, and how can it continue to matter that networks that networks are strong during this pandemic? And that can be over to you, Amy. You haven't sort of necessarily talked about the virtual aspect of your work yet.
Yes, of course. So Obviously, primarily what we do at Level 39 is a lot of things in person, but as every business has during this time, we've moved a lot of our activity online. And that is our kind of general support aspects, which are the mentor, investor and partner sessions. But we also launched something called Digital 39, which was an initiative to get our community online and sharing their stories and their experiences, especially during this time, the challenges that each entrepreneur and founder has faced, so that others can learn from that. So this is a fully open kind of platform that's, that anyone can access. And we've done this in the absence of people being able to connect in person. We, you know, as I think a lot of people have, we've done surveys of our community, and you know, the thing that has been missing is people have missed being able to catch up over a coffee, meet at events. So by still allowing that knowledge share through written content, through podcast content, that's been a really good added value to both our community and our wider network and anyone that wants to look at that resource. But something we're now doing is looking at virtual meetups or hybrid meetups, which I think will be something that is quite common as the months progress. But we'll be using a platform called Remo that just to make sure that networking is still possible. Of course, virtual events are slightly different, and you do need to have a bit more structure to it. It's not just, you know, food and drinks and getting people to naturally mingle. You do need to do a bit more work to make sure that they are all connecting and encouraged to start conversations. But we're really excited to do our meetups that way, in the hope that we'll then move to a hybrid model when we've got more and more people on the floor and we're able to host events here, obviously outside of those restrictions. So it's still important to make sure people are speaking, whether it's through video, whether it's in person, whether it's just picking up the phone, whether it's text messages. It's that personal contact that allows networks and relationships to build. And we want to make sure that we're still doing that through all of our streams and channels of content.
Yeah, super interesting. And the idea of, you know, hybrid networking is definitely something that's going to emerge, I think, isn't it?
It's an interesting one. Not quite sure how it's going to work yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we're all learning, aren't we? You know, and including during this market missions program itself.
Absolutely.
You know, we're trying, I guess, all collectively trying to figure out the best ways for people to connect. Karen, tell us a little bit more about, you know, your virtual networks and how you're addressing COVID and in particular with a view to overseas businesses.
Yeah, I think now more than ever, I do agree with Amy, now more than ever, because everyone's just stuck at home, I think connection virtually is so important. I do believe that going forward, there probably will be a hybrid way of working physically, virtually. I don't know how that would look, but I definitely could see that happening. I think with our trade programs, we've really noticed that there was a definite need to move very quickly virtually. So we've got two trade programs, one kind of the business growth program that helps London-based companies that could have barriers to scaling, which is a 3-month program. And then there's the Mayor's International Business Program, which is essentially a year's program that works with the Mayor to take companies internationally. So the business growth program actually went virtually very quick, the first one to do it, and everyone kind of replicated it. And they had their biggest cohort this summer, which says quite a lot, the demand's there. And then the Mayor's program, for example, the Fintech mission that I'm working on for North America with my colleague in New York is they've already got, they've got meetings for, it's a bit like this really, you've got meetings that you just wouldn't have got before. And another example is London Tech Week, which is something we co-founded, which went totally virtual and actually went virtual 3 times this year. So we did 3 times the amount of work, but you know, we got people like Hillary Clinton involved. Probably would never have got them if it was in person. We tried many years. So I think ultimately it's very much making sure that we're supporting all of our businesses, all of our stakeholders and clients internationally, like virtually, and we are doing it well. I think now though, there is a definite need for some face-to-face contact.
Sure. Olivia, you talked a lot about content, and tell us a little bit more about the networking in COVID times.
Sure. I think from my point of view, we've been busier than ever during the lockdown in terms of connecting with more and more people. I think content is more accessible now. People have time to sit and read it and actually form an opinion and respond. So there's a lot more interaction going on there. Also, I think I would echo what Karen said in terms of hosting a lot of webinars, which we've done, and virtual events, they're more open in a way because you don't have to travel to them, so people can sign up, I suppose, at the last minute. And as I said before, as fintech's quite fast paced, we've been able to react quicker to what's actually happening. I think in previous years, a topic would have come up and then maybe it would have taken us a couple of months to actually organise to talk about it. Whereas now you can do that in maybe 1 or 2 weeks, and you can speak to people from across the globe. So I think that's been really important. I think the networking thing's been a challenge. I think networking is a bit less appealing, and I think there's a bit of fatigue around it, in terms of, in the evening we normally go to events, but now I think if it's 5 o'clock and you've sat at your laptop all day, no one really wants to sit there and do the Zoom pub quiz or things like that at the moment. And that's kind of come into networking events as well. So I'm interested about the idea of hybrid events, and obviously what Newfound's doing as well in terms of allowing people to have that time with speakers as well. But I think, yeah, there's also a bit of fatigue when it comes to content, because while people have more time to read it, people have more time to write it as well. So there's a lot out there at the moment. I think everyone has a podcast or a webinar series or something at the moment. So I think it's about making that less taxing for people, maybe making things easier for people to digest, pointing them in the right directions where things are. I think we found our webinars work quite well, but sometimes when we've just had a chat between 2 people that's a bit more casual, people have really enjoyed that, actually hearing stories from founders and stuff. So I think it forces you to be a bit more creative there, because otherwise there's just too much to take in.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I love going to events, and I'm sure we all here love, you know, going to physical events. There's one of the things that's really nice about those events is that you have those kind of chance meetings. You know, you can bump into someone at you know, at a bar, or, you know, over a conversation. And how do we replicate that serendipity, if you like, in these kind of virtual environments?
I think that's what we're still probably learning. I think certainly, well, I'll let you know when we've done our first networking meetup through Remo, but certainly from the kind of the feedback we've had from other people that have used platforms like that, I think you have to make things more structured. You do need to have a draw, as Olivia said, you know, there's a lot of online content and events now, so you do almost need to create that structure, as you guys have, for you know, this mission, to draw people in, to make sure people are going for a reason, know who they're going to meet, and perhaps open up the speaker opportunity and, you know, access to speakers, which perhaps that's the thing that is more available now outside of typical events, where, you know, in a big conference, you're unlikely to really speak to one of the speakers in person because people flock to them. Whereas on a virtual event, perhaps that's now more accessible. But yeah, I think it's still perhaps a learning, and things, you know, will adapt as we do more of them.
Yeah, and very much like you guys, we actually are going to try kind of a matchmaking session where we're going to matchmake some of the mayor's programs clients, businesses, to potential kind of companies who are looking to come to London. So that's going to be interesting. Breakout rooms, and I think all of us have become very you know, we've pivoted really well, but I think I've learned so many new skills just working from home, which I never thought would happen, to be honest with you. And I've heard a lot of people have felt the same way.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've seen, you kind of mentioned structure, and we've seen a bit of an increase in our membership with people wanting to get more involved, or even existing members trying to now make the most out of this online platform. And I think it's really nice to see, because when we do attend all these events, you chase people, or I certainly chase people around conferences and things like that. And it feels a bit mad, but I think now people have been able to step back and look at an online platform, for example, like Fintech Alliance, and say, okay, who's actually part of this, and what can I find out about them, and then approach them in a slightly more structured way, and helping them interact with each other. So on our platform, communities can kind of contact one another and publish their news and privately message each other. So I think we've seen that kind of grow a lot, and it's a good chance for us to step back, and because we're about a year old now, and reevaluate what we're doing. Because I think previously with our content, we've been very like, okay, this is what we think is going to work for the community, and just putting it out there, and people have responded well. But now it's about, do you feel we're there for you? Why or why not? And I think as well, just because people are thinking about the way they run their business and streamlining, they're going to think, how can I get the most out of these networks if I am a part of them?
Yeah, sure. And I think that perhaps one of the upsides in a way of sort of losing this kind of spontaneity and the serendipity that we all experience and like at live events is that, we have that kind of more organized, more targeted and more accessible speakers, including yourselves, who will be available immediately after this session. So that's proof in action. I just want to move on now to this idea of thinking about the UK and UK fintech. London is very often synonymous with the UK, and the two are used interchangeably. And obviously, we're all in London today, but London and it's not the end of the story when it comes to fintech. We have a wide range of cities across the UK. And Olivia, perhaps you could just talk a little bit about that. And everybody's reasonably well positioned, but Olivia in Fintech Alliance is a national network. Tell us your perspective on the different clusters that we have around the country.
Of course. Well, this is something I feel really passionate about. Obviously, London is the fintech hub, but I think we'd be doing ourselves a disservice if we didn't take into account all the work that's going on around the UK as well. I think it's tempting for companies to focus on London, obviously they should, but there's lots of kind of different skills and talent. And I speak to a lot of people and ask, do you think a fintech needs to be based in London? These answers are kind of changing with the impact of COVID-19, but I think we've already been hearing about great talent pools across the UK and kind of lower cost of setting up. And also often in regions with great transport links to London, you can still engage with the kind of London hub as well. So Fintech Alliance has partnerships with all of the kind of regional fintech hubs across the UK, and we're really keen to try and promote what they're doing and have a balanced view there. So what I would say, I would urge people to kind of take into account is the different specialisms in different regions, because you may find some really interesting companies to partner with or to work with that kind of suit what you're doing. So I'll just explain a few of them individually. Scotland, which we had a whole panel on Scotland last week at Fintech Alliance. It was home to the first Masters in Fintech in the UK. It's now building a global open finance centre of excellence. And Scotland really engages with its various universities and is having a big push at the moment to develop talent and skills. Also SMEs are kind of on the rise. It has over 100 fintech organisations at the moment, and there's the support of kind of the big financial institutions like RBS as well, which are really keen to build those relationships. And we have Fintech Wales as well. So Wales has a lot of technology hubs specifically. It has about 40 fintechs, and some key areas of success for Wales have been insurance, price comparison, payment sector as well, some success stories in investment management too. And also there's the talent and skills aspect there, as well as access to London. So being able to kind of travel in and still be connected. Talk a little bit about Northern Ireland as well as a centre for fintech that's becoming more and more internationally recognised. I would say there's a strong SME startup community, lots of support from the government, very entrepreneurial ecosystem. There's lots of kind of incubators there. I would say that's really a hub for tech, such as kind of data analytics, cybersecurity. So if you're a kind of business looking to partner maybe there, that would be really interesting to look at. Finally, I'll just mention Fintech North. The World Bank says that the Northern Powerhouse would be, I think, the 9th biggest country in Europe, if it was a country, in terms of the value add of financial services. So there's a lot of growth going on there, especially in Leeds and Manchester. And I would say the communities largely they're made up of kind of the bigger banks and building societies who now want to embrace fintech and innovate. So again, if you're kind of maybe a B2B business, you're looking to build partnerships, I think there's a great place to look. So you can find all the kind of regional hubs on the Fintech Alliance site, but also, feel free to ask me afterwards if there's any information you want to have. But I think the consensus really is we need to engage with these networks as well as London, because you can't just pretend London's not there and it's not the global hub. But I think it would be silly to kind of pretend that these aren't doing some really great things as well.
Sure. Karen, London Partners is by definition and was set up as the London Mayor's promotional agency, but of course you look beyond London as well, and working with other government supported organisations like Tech Nation. Cast your net a little bit wider. Which other cities and what are the connections, and what are the other places that matter in the UK?
I was at a cyber conference in Lille before lockdown. And I met the guys from Scotland and Wales, and there's a massive cyber focus there, and fintech focus. So completely agree with Olivia. For us, if a company comes to London, they're eventually, probably go to the rest of the UK. And if a company comes to the UK, they'll come to London. So it goes hand in hand. We work very closely with the likes of Department of International Trade. Also Tech Nation, I know they've just hired who's got an international focus, who we know very well. So that would be great to connect with them, her again. And I just think in general, I mean, London and partners, that does specifically work to our partners that like accountants, lawyers, etc. But it is our wider community. I think it would be naive not to kind of look at the whole of the UK, for sure.
Yeah, and Amy, Level 39, as we've already said, is cast its net far, far wider than just Canary Wharf and East London.
Yes, absolutely. And we have, a lot of our members, very similar to what Karen said, we have members from all over the world who obviously might have either their quite a strong presence in London and at Level 39, or they might have satellite offices here and have larger teams elsewhere in the UK. So, what I would suggest is echoing that point about Tech Nation as well in terms of resource. They write a lot of reports on tech across the UK. So it's a really good resource for anyone looking at what the different options are in terms of hubs across the UK.
Yeah, no, sure, that's really useful. I mean, a few years ago, as a journalist, I did a tour of the UK and met loads of entrepreneurs in loads of cities around the UK, and some of the big fintech cities that that were really, really prominent were Edinburgh, as you've mentioned, you've all mentioned, and Olivia in particular. Big SME cluster there, and places like Manchester and increasingly Newcastle. So the story of UK fintech is about much more than London. I wanted to just ask you each if you've got we've talked about networks that you'd recommend and you think that incoming fintech should connect with, and it obviously you're going to say your own, but I'm going to push you to recommend a network that is not your own, that you think that incoming businesses should look at. We'll start with Karen.
So I'm going to say, apart from our own, Innovate Finance. They're kind of an independent, not-for-profit trade body. They represent the UK's global fintech industry. It's a membership organisation that helps companies of all stages. But essentially, they just, when everything we do with regards to fintech, we work really closely with the likes of Olivia and Amy and Level 39, but also kind of Innovate Finance, the City of London, a wide range. But I'm going to say Innovate Finance.
If I just follow, because I was going to say the same thing, but I have another one. But another thing on Innovate Finance, actually, they do have their global summit that is a really incredible, global leadership event that they do every year. And it's basically a must attend for anyone in fintech. Yeah. But I guess what I'll say is a smaller community or smaller kind of organization called Innovation Commons. And this has actually been set up by one of my former colleagues, along with someone in our network. And it's just a really amazing way for small businesses to be able to connect with the actual, doers of the industry, people that have created these partnerships, people that have, engaged corporates and startups. So it's a really interesting mix of attendees and speakers, but it is also an online community of which, at the moment, a lot of that is virtual. Sometimes it's in person. And of course that will, as they move to perhaps a hybrid model as well, there'll be opportunities to connect with people in person. But I would suggest them and check out Innovation Commons.
Olivia.
Sure. Well, I mean, I've mentioned regions already quite a bit. And I'm still on a bit of a Scotland hype from this panel we did. I'm ready to pack up and move there, to be honest with you. It sounds absolutely lovely. But I know the FinTech Envoy for Scotland, Lou Smith, is speaking at Market Missions. So it'd be great to get in touch with her. And I think just generally the regional bodies, not just because you want to go and base yourself there, but I think there's a lot you can learn from them about the UK as a whole. They're very kind of interactive and happy to really support people. I think I've seen that from COVID. I've had lots of good conversations with Fintech North, Fintech Scotland, about how they're helping different companies and they have a real ear to the ground on like what's going on, as well as the kind of connection with the government and industry together. So they can be a really good fountain of knowledge of where to get support, whether you're looking to actually base there or not.
Sure. And I would also add into that mix, you know, as representing Newfound, we're here to help link people into our networks as well, offering advice and introductions to experts in market as well. And, you know, and we'll work with the three organisations that are represented here and beyond as well. So on that note, I mean, you know, we're a private sector organisation at Newfound. How do you see yourselves, and how have you been working and see yourself working with us and others like us in future?
I mean, I'll go ahead. I'm very much on a complementary basis, actually. It's very similar to our relationship with the Department of International Trade. You guys obviously focus on helping companies validate their plans and get them ready for the market. At a very early stage. We also help with kind of insights and data on London, specifically comparing London to numerous cities and everything with regards to tax, corporation tax, you know, cost of living, that kind of thing. And then it kind of differs on a case-by-case basis. So what the client may need additional help with, you know, if you've provided some of it, we'll provide the rest and vice versa.
Sure. Amy.
So in terms of the relationship we have with Newfound and also with London and Partners, they're very similar. And that's because obviously you guys give the support for these businesses as they are incoming into the UK and into London. And Level 39 can be a home for some of those businesses if they see a fit. And what we've done over the last 7 years, especially with London and Partners, and as we'll do with Newfound as well, is really about understanding who those businesses are, what their requirements are, what support they need, and if London is their place of choice and they are a fintech and cybersecurity business and or cybersecurity business, then you know Level 39 can be a home for them, and we would happily have a discussion and see how our community can support them and their growth journey.
Olivia.
Yes, so from our point of view, Fintech Alliance very much does have an international focus. At the moment, we're building our community up in the UK, but we intend to be live with our model in several new markets throughout the year, which I can't name any yet, unfortunately, but this is all happening with the support of the Department for International Trade, aligned with the FinTech bridges, which do include obviously Australia. And that's why I think we felt Newfound was perfect to engage with, so we can share our knowledge of both markets. I think speaking to the Newfound team has given us a perspective on what it's like to be a company from outside the UK, and the experience that people have coming in. So that helps us realign the support we can offer rather than just giving people what we think they might need. So one thing for me, I was talking to Peter, the CEO, recently, and he said that while there is a lot of support, it's quite, there's almost too much support, and people find it a bit confusing and hard to navigate. So that's something we've now been able to take on board and help with that. So yeah, it's just totally aligned with our goals, really.
Karen, I think that's something that London and Partners does very well, is provide information on networks and resources where people who are unfamiliar with the UK scene can turn to.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I mentioned kind of the research information that we provide. Our commercial partners range from, you know, accountants, lawyers, banking providers. A lot of them work with you guys as well. And they all provide an hour's free advice. So you're under no obligation to speak to as many or few as you like. I mean, we are a free and confidential organisation. We're measured on many things, but the biggest thing is job creation and growth in London. That is our primary purpose. But we help businesses, students, tourists, and major events come to London. So it's kind of all encompassing. But our offering is very wide, and it's connecting you to all of our networks. And helping you set your business up sooner than you probably anticipated.
One of the words that stuck out from what you were just saying was free, and just wanted to, I mean, do people have to pay for any of these networks, Amy and Olivia? How does it work from your organisation's perspective in terms of you know, charging?
So, sorry. You want to go?
So, we're too keen to tell everyone the details, but we're not for profit, but we charge a kind of fee to be part of the community, but that is tiered based on the size of the company. So it's very important to us and to DIT that everyone was able to be part of Fintech Alliance. So it might be free if you're a very early stage startup, or very minimal cost if you're a small fintech, and then it depends on what you're sort of able to pay, I suppose. So we charge that on a sort of monthly basis, and people can leave at any time, which is a great challenge for us, really. It means that on a regular basis, we're kind of keeping up, especially now with people looking at where they're spending their money. So it means we have that constant contact with people over kind of making sure everyone's happy and they're getting the most out of the network.
And from a level 39 perspective, so we have a membership model, so it does mean people pay to be a member of ours. That also grants them obviously physical office space, co-working space. We are in a position to basically house companies from one person all the way up to hundreds, really. Because as I said, you know, being part of the Canary Wharf group, we have the entire estate to play with, like we did with Revolut. You know, they joined us with just a couple of people and are now over 300 people in Canary Wharf. So we have that, but in terms of all of the support elements, they are all encompassing within that membership. So access to our mentor network, warm introductions to investors, and all of the support and amplification we do alongside that to make sure we can get the word out about what they're doing.
Great. All right. Thank you for that explanation, everybody. I'm going to ask each of you, if you can, we talked about particular networks. If you give it some thought in a moment, just to think about an individual that you would recommend anyone to contact or connect with somehow online. But before we do that, I'd like each of you to share, if you can, your single top tip for incoming fintech businesses when it comes to network and people connections. And feel free to chat amongst yourselves on this one. And Karen, fire away.
I would say my top tip is to think about a bank account early enough. I mean, I've spoken to quite a few Australian companies in the past, and I think that's been one of the biggest shocks for them. It does take a while. However, we actually do have a new partner called Meridian, who can help you set up an e-money account, which you can get set up really quickly. At the same time as you applying for a normal bank account with HSBC or Metro Bank or whoever it is. But I think that's my top tip, is the bank account.
I'll go my top tip. So mine would probably be on the network element. Do start reaching out to people before you, and join missions like this prior to coming to the UK, for example, just so you can start understanding who's already there, and also what potential partners are on the ground. You know, don't feel you have to do it alone. There are people that you could have a really interesting synergy with and end up collaborating on, and actually gain some traction in the UK prior to actually making that full move. So you can really understand what the opportunities are, and then start thinking about hiring and putting people on the ground here. So I would say, I actually had a couple of people already message me on LinkedIn. Use LinkedIn. It's an absolute beauty. But also, you know, that way, you know, I think you can build your network already. Just because we're not here, everything is virtual at the moment. So it's great that you can start having conversations. You can have virtual coffees, all of those things I'd recommend as a top tip.
I think I would echo very much what Amy said. I think when we think of the challenges people face, I think building up your brand and profile here in the UK can be quite challenging. It's quite fast paced, there's a lot going on. And even as much as we're advanced in terms of technology over here, people still want to get to know you, the founder or the CEO, like, who is this person? Have they seen you before? Can they ask other people about you, and what's other people's experience been? So it's being that constant presence, which I think can be quite hard, but it's not impossible to do. And I would also say, yeah, throw yourself in, go to every event, virtually or otherwise. At the moment, you know, join the networking groups, connect to people. You know, we do still rely on that. I think that personal touch and human connection, you know, partners want to get to know you as a person. So I think now that sometimes has to be a phone call, unfortunately, rather than a coffee or a drink, but you can still definitely do it, but you need to be a bit more creative.
Yeah, Yeah, okay, well, a lovely combination there of kind of like, you know, very, very practical things like, you know, bank accounts to, you know, the sorts of virtual networks it's really important to communicate with at the time. I'm going to come back to that other question that I had just before, which is about, you know, is there, you know, who's an individual that you'd recommend that people connect with if they can't meet them in person? Is that something on LinkedIn? Somebody who's you should be following on Twitter? Who's in the know on UK fintech that these incoming companies should know?
I mean, I can go.
Okay.
I would say David Brewer from 11FS. In case you're not aware, 11FS is fantastic fintech focused kind of consultancy. They do a lot of research, industry benchmarking, but they also have a huge amount of kind of industry leading content and events, and they've got a podcast which you should definitely listen to, especially if you're a fintech business. It's fantastic and well worth I'm following on LinkedIn. As Amy says, LinkedIn is a beauty. So
Great. Just now, Amy and Olivia, we've got a couple of minutes only, so just if you can just give us your who should people connect to?
So if I go quickly, I'm going to actually cheat and not just say one person. So this is where I think mentors really are incredible people, and we list all of our mentors on our website. And I would actually suggest having a look at them, look at their bios, and reach out to them, because the whole point of them being on our website is they are also people who mentor quite across the board, not just at Level 39, but they have different expertise, they have different areas of knowledge and their own networks. So, you know, find someone, whether it is a mentor on Level 39 or find it someone that is, you know, an advisor, and connect with them on LinkedIn and have a chat with them. Outside of that, if I do need to give a name, someone in our network who's a mentor and a member called Rick Tolfree. He is like a super connector. If you're interested in Level 39, for example, and our network, he like knows everyone. So he's a great person to speak to.
I would say I was going to mention David Brewer as well, but I think a great option for us, from us at Fintech Alliance, is our chairman, Al Lukis. He's also founder and CEO of Pollinate. So he has the experience of kind of being part of the founding team of a fintech, but also a lot of years of experience in the industry. Again, one of those people who just seems to know everyone somehow. And I think very sort of frank in the way he will talk to you about kind of challenges and what's going on. And, you know, has those kind of connections with government and with different labs and incubators as well. So.
Brilliant. And on the note of Al Lukis, we have at the back end of this mission program at the end of next week on the 24th of September, Thursday, Al Lukis is joining an investor panel. So you can connect with him direct there. I really love doing this session. It's been really, really fun, and also just to try and untangle the kind of current situations that we're all wrestling with. On behalf of Newfound, I'd love to thank Amy French from Level 39, Olivia Minute from Fintech Alliance, and Karen Sandu from London Partners. We are going into now the Meet the Speakers session, and thank you very much all of you for joining. For the audience, just follow the links through to your individual speakers on Taman via Zoom. You should have had the email. This mission gives you that kind of unbridled access that we've been talking about, and thank you very much indeed, and we'll see you in the chat room.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.